Hi, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Shopify Meetup Hoboken. My name is Richard Carrion, and I'm your host today, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Refersion. And for those that are just learning about Refersion, we help connect merchants and brands with consumers through influencer and affiliate marketing, and we help them do that at scale. But enough of that. Today, we have an amazing panel set up in front of us, and we have folks joining us from both the West Coast and the East Coast with really great insights across not only the industry, but also as merchants themselves. But in addition to our panels, we also have folks that are joining us from all over the country, 40 plus states, and most of you are actually owners of your own Shopify stores, so that's awesome. But with that said, we have a great topic today that all of us are itching to learn more about, especially in this new type of e-commerce world that we're living in. And that's focused on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But before we get into the topic, I just want to touch on a couple of housekeeping items. So the first is, if you have any questions and would like to ask those questions to our panel, go ahead and use the chat box on the right side of your screen, and go ahead and put your questions in there under the the stage section of the chat box. So you'll see two tabs up there, and we will try to get to those questions throughout today's panel. And also, we ask that you respect not only our panelists, but others that are in attendance here, because this is a place of learning and community as well. Lastly, I'd like to also thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank Rebuy as well as Avex. A little bit about Rebuy is Rebuy is an omni-channel personalization engine built to increase online sales and conversions by upselling, cross-selling, and recommending products and personalizing the online shopping experience. At its core, Rebuy is an automated, data-driven personalization engine built on its own API. And for you Shopify merchants, you can actually build on that API. And for Avex, they're a creative technology and e-commerce optimization agency that partners with fashion, home, and lifestyle brands. Actually, one of my favorite brands, Kith, actually works with them, which is pretty cool. And they work on user experience design and Shopify Plus development, conversion rate optimization, email marketing, and e-commerce consulting. And lastly, we'd like to thank Shopify for allowing us to host this event and build community for the folks that are working on Shopify's platform. Great, so let's jump into it. So as we know and have heard that e-commerce is expected to grow by 18%. However, recent studies have shown that we're expecting actually between 25 and 35%, which is unheard of. And because of the pandemic, that has actually catalyzed a lot of that growth. And to add to it, with this new holiday shopping season that is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen, 75% of US consumers that said they're going to be shopping this holiday season actually reported they're actually going to be shopping more online than they've done ever before. So that actually paints a really huge opportunity for all e-commerce merchants, small and large alike, to really capture the attention of consumers this holiday season, but also build that growth for 2021. So there's three topics we're going to cover today. We're going to actually cover how to decrease your CAC, not increase, that would be terrible. Also increase your lifetime value, and reducing churn and drive repeat purchases. So I'd like to pass it over to the panelists and have them introduce themselves. So Shama, I'd like to have you start.
Awesome, thanks. My name is Shama Maher, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Rental Co. And we, unlike Jason, we just launched our business like less than 6 months ago. It's been absolutely wild and an amazing journey so far. A little bit about the brand. We started off launching in PPE. So like a lot of companies out there who saw an opportunity in the marketplace, we said, let's gun it and do it, myself and our co-founder. And gosh, guys, it's been less than 6 months. We've done about 2 million in gross revenue, which is totally wild. And I've been treating this entire business like it's this giant marketing experiment. So everything that's been like juicy and exciting, I'm like, let's go, let's try, let's make it happen. So that I'm really, really excited about. We're going to be launching with a totally different product category coming out in November. So we're going to see if we can actually create a brand out of this kind of product line and out of this business. But boy, what an amazing and incredible 6 months it's been. Excited to share with you guys like all the crazy things I've been trying to do.
It's awesome. Yeah, Shama, that's amazing. Congratulations to you and the team. And Jason, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about yourself and what Taproom does.
Yeah, for sure. So unlike Shama, we launched actually last May, so May of 2019. What is Taproom now? It is the nation's first beer platform that helps accelerate brands both in bars, restaurants, and supermarkets, mostly through e-commerce, as well as to consumers across New York on e-commerce. We similarly have sort of exploded during COVID. The brands in our platform are looking at doing just over $10 million this year across all the different channels. So we're doing very well through a sort of different methodology. We have a great brand where you can go to taproom.com and order all kinds of interesting beers and seltzers and ciders, many of which are exclusively with us. But our big focus is really helping those brands. You'd be amazed how many beer brands, seltzer brands have no idea how to sell on e-commerce. They've never really had to do it before. They have no idea, even the idea of what Cyber Monday would mean for their brand at all. So we've been extremely helpful to them by helping them do digital marketing, helping them with email marketing, helping them with SMS marketing I was talking about yesterday. There's a lot of tools that we've been able to provide beer brands that has really helped expand our platform beyond just a marketplace for beer, but more of sort of a supercharging engine for beer brands here in New York. But excited to talk a lot more about how we're helping them and also how we're building our brand inside of that as well.
I love it, Jason. The supply side and the demand side. Clearly, I'm on the demand side for the beer, which is amazing, but also helping the supply. Oh, yes. For sure. I think we're all excited to be on the demand side. And then I would love for Sue, please introduce yourself as well.
Sure will. Thanks, Richie. Susan Hogan. I am the SVP of Research at the Interactive Advertising Bureau, IAB, IAB.com. For those of you who don't know IAB, it wouldn't surprise me. We only opened our doors to brands about 2 years ago. And the beauty of it now is that we truly convene the entire media ecosystem under one roof. And the great part of it is that it is, to Jason's point, buy and sell side. And it's a very big digital focus with a lot of work that we have done in research on everything from how are consumers, using media today, and how will that help the digital sellers, as well as things like what is it that you need to do as a brand in order to help goose your customer loyalty and things like that. So we've done a tremendous amount of work in the last 3 years on brand disruption. And I'd like to thank Richie. That's why you invited me.
Absolutely. I remember my favorite study was last year, focused on just the ecosystem, comparing direct consumer brands and incumbent brands and their acquisition strategies and how they differ between each other, which is truly industry leading, to say the least. So let's go ahead and dive right into the topic. Recently, of course, life is not the same. I think we all know that, and we're all living that. Clearly, we're all separated, couldn't be in person today. However, we did get to experience the first promotional holiday during this pandemic, and that was Labor Day. It was a unique Labor Day, and also quite a quiet back to school season as well, because I know a lot of parents out there weren't sure if their kids are going back to school or not. But with that said, for the merchants here, and Sue, please chime in here as well, is like, what did you learn during this small period of time that we've had exposure to so far?
So I'll start by just saying, we've been watching media trends since this all started back in March. We've had 6 studies in the field now to watch what's happening with the budgets for marketing, especially for digital marketing. But we look at traditional too. We're looking at TV, we're looking at print, and we're looking at direct mail. And so what we saw initially was that a lot of large brands pulled back from traditional media as quickly as they could, which wasn't quick at all, because traditional media you need a long lead time for, right? So it was the digital world and the podcasts and audio streaming spaces that were allowing for a lot of agility and flexibility of changing messages, so you didn't sound tone deaf. And we also saw that the messaging changed at the same time, right? For that very reason. So we are now seeing that there's been a swing back to performance marketing. And I'd love to ask you guys what you're doing, and if you felt yourself in that movement too of mission-based, cause-related, and now more performance as we head into holiday periods.
Jason, you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, I can hop in. So we were in the we were in the position pre-COVID where we were having to convince both the consumers and the beer brands that we represent on our platform that selling through digital marketing was an important tool. It was a good way to build consumer loyalty. It was a good way to get the product in people's homes so they fall in love with it. Most did not listen, not for a second. It was a very small part of the beer space. It was probably 0.2% of all beer sales in 2019 were online. It was one of the smallest categories nationwide. COVID happened, and what we saw, in early April, late March, everywhere from Anheuser-Busch and Constellation and Miller Coors, all the way down to some of the local breweries here in New York City that only used to sell outside of their physical bar tap room, were giving us a call, being like, "How do we actually sell to people at home? Where do I put my money to help build my brand now that I can't go to a bar and do a big event? I can't go to the supermarket and have samplings everywhere. That's no longer allowed. How do I actually build a brand anymore?" And so we were in that position of being sort of the first people out there to even talk about the idea, and that was in March. And all of a sudden, we've had brands coming on board, kind of shifting big dollars. The ones that used to go to the samplings, the brand ambassadors, the events, the beer festivals, the even signage in out of home, all moving towards digital marketing and e-commerce. And we help them a lot with that, but we're also seeing them just driving traffic towards their random product page. So Heineken sends tons of traffic to their Heineken page on Taproom solely because that's the only way to really sell Heineken right now. They're looking for any way to get e-commerce out. So we've seen big shifts of marketing dollars towards whatever the digital space could be for them, because it was so small before. It was really just sort of Facebook ad impression campaigns. Bud Light is available somewhere. Go find it. Very similar to like a Super Bowl ad. And all of a sudden, this conversion-based ad selling on digital has become just front of mind. That's all they're thinking about, because suddenly it's like, oh, if we get that in someone's home, they're going to engage with it. They're going to fall in love with it. That's a very important tool for brand building.
That's so cool. I am, my business launched April 12th, right? So what did we do? It was like, for me, it was this kind of big experiment of how can I take everything that I know to be true and then kind of orchestrate it in this really interesting way. And so the way that we kind of approached just the brand launch was we immediately signed on with PR. We were like, all right, we almost treated the product launch or this business like it was like a fashion brand launch, even though we were selling cloth masks, but we kind of treated it as if it was this bigger brand launch, fashion brand launch. And so it was so interesting. So immediately we were we launched with PR. We got in New York Magazine strategist, so we started playing the PR game, and then we kind of layered in the affiliate marketing game, and then we kind of layered in social ad spend, and then we layered in direct mail. And so we kept trying to layer in all of these different components to basically figure out what was the right kind of suite of instruments that we needed to have in our orchestra. And going into Labor Day and kind of going in, so now the business is a few months old. Obviously in the beginning, everyone was everyone's doing a mask, so don't do it. Everyone's everyone's doing it, don't. And we were screw that, we're gonna go do it. And so obviously since that whole thing launched, right, in the few months that happened, it's sales were this, and then it was okay, this, and now it's kind of this. And so it's this very interesting surf in terms of not having any sort of predictability at all. When you talk about a volatile market, anytime we hear there's a vaccine coming out, we're oh shit, we gotta sell inventory. We're super agile. So when it comes to thinking about agile anything from the supply chain to product development to marketing, all of it, it's I'm basically falling forward constantly. And for Labor Day, we kind of pulled, some of our tricks in terms of all right, well, how do we beat everyone to break sale for Labor Day first, right? Again, kind of treating it a bit more like a fashion brand, like we were, it's not fashion, but we like to think we're a premium mask product. And we ended up running some ads for Labor Day, breaking sale probably a week before Labor Day happened. And it was incredible. It was actually far better than we had anticipated. And now kind of rolling from there into this next time period, for us, a lot of it is what are going to be the right channels for these new products we want to roll out? And we also want to be experimenting with this new retargeted direct mail campaign. We're basically playing. This whole thing has been an extremely fun opportunity to play.
And when you say direct mail, you're talking traditional direct mail?
Correct.
Or are you talking email marketing?
No, I'm talking traditional, because when the lockdown happened, in my mind, I was like, oh shit, everyone's at home. Everyone's going to regular digital advertising. How do I capture people at home, right? How do I use some arbitrage here and get in at a cheap, get in cheap and get in before everyone else realizes that we're all sitting at home. And so a lot of it has been kind of, again, playing this where can I get in before everyone else gets in?
Yeah.
Yeah, early and often, especially when it comes to tangibility, that idea of being able to hold something in your hand can be very powerful. In my previous life, I was in the programmatic direct mail space, which is essentially taking online interest and intent and doing retargeting with physical direct mail, which is quite interesting. But with that, it sounds like you're in a fairly competitive space, and it seems like you're playing day by day. And as you mentioned, you're laying these different channels on top of each other. So let's talk about how you got started in those channels, because I'm sure some channels are more lucrative than others, especially when it comes to seasonality. But with that said, how did you actually grow into your guys' channels in terms of okay, this is the channel we want to test out, and then how did you actually scale that over time?
I'm gonna let Jason take that one because I've been playing a cat and mouse game with Facebook, and it's been we can go into my drama. So Jason, you probably have some better, more concrete insight here.
Oh yeah, it's definitely been a cat and mouse game since March. You definitely entered into the wild west of Facebook ads. But when we started, we knew. I mean, this is still true today. Our most lucrative channel by far is our email channel. Of our 180,000 email subscribers, that is where we make the most amount of money of any marketing channel. So we knew even when we started it back, last May 2019, we needed a big email list. That was important. When a brand entered our platform or when we were marketing, a big sale like Labor Day, having that email channel is going to be important. So we actually spent the solid 2-3 months collecting emails from our brands. So literally asking the brand, do you collect emails in your tap room, or have you collected emails at events? Send them to us. We'll mark for you. Building up a base of emails for ourselves, but also then running some Facebook ads just for email collection, pure email collection. And once that got built up, we then had a solid database just of people we could reach. We had an audience that we could speak to. So that was a big part of that early period. And once we had that, we started adding more brands in. The way we started use them was let's joint promote. So I think, the good adage was we'd only bring on brands that had more Instagram followers than us, basically, or Twitter followers. And so we would bring on a brand and we jointly promote that they're now available on Taproom, or we're exclusively representing them. And then that would always lead to more followers for both of us, but it would slowly get up. So that was a very cheap and easy way to do it. So bringing on partners, I know not everyone has a marketplace, but if you do, partner with them to get your social presence up, get your email list up. That worked extraordinarily well for us. And so by the time January, February came around, we'd already had sort of, we probably had, I was mentioning this the other day, it was 900 emails on our email funnels now. So if you're in Long Island and you've bought hard tea seltzer once, you get an email every 2 weeks about every other seltzer or hard kombucha or hard tea that has ever existed, in a sequence over the next 2 years. And that's how we're going to introduce you to brands. And it's a really specialized program. It works so well. But once you're at that point where you have built that up, we knew in February, right before COVID, it was time to start paying attention to real digital marketing, conversion-based digital marketing. Luckily for us, we set it all up. We had everything ready to go. We had the spot where we had all the ads sort of set up. COVID happened, restrictions came into place, people were locked down, started to order in bulk. to Samuel's point, the cost per click started coming down like crazy. Cost conversions came down like crazy in April. Where like, I guess all the advertisers started pulling from Facebook. So, for less than $1, we were getting 50 to $80 orders on our site on Facebook. And so that was a period late March through April. So we actually went in like 10x on digital marketing through that period. But again, that was the Wild West. And then it just started going crazy. So like as people started coming back in, as the world started reopening, as advertisers started shifting spend again to digital marketing, as new brands popped up, like Sam started spending a lot, their rates started just going nuts. So we paid a close attention to it. So that was how we really got started. And then by the time COVID happened, it's been mostly digital marketing, getting investment from brands to pay for that digital marketing at this point, now that we've built a huge base. So
how far ahead are you, if you don't mind me? I'm sorry, Richie. How far ahead of you are you in your marketing plans for, like, are you planning right now on a month by month? Are you planning for the quarter? Are you planning for a full year 2021? Where are you?
That's a good question. So we've rolled back 100% of our own marketing. It was always, so the truth is we're about 6 months ahead of where we thought we were going to be. We planned to spend Taproom money for the next 6 months. We spent it all during COVID when we saw this big opportunity to build an e-commerce brand name in the beer space during COVID. Now that we have the name, the big brands pay for their marketing on our site. So like we are able to take 50 grand from Bud Light and run ads featuring, Taproom featured ads with Bud Light featured. So that pays for all of our marketing now, but we use that period. And so we're about 6 months ahead, I would say, of plan.
It's funny. We just did some research at IAB that showed that this was a month ago. It came out of field a month ago on the 13th of August, and it showed that 9% of buyers, and this is big brands, small brands, you name it, agency and brands, said that they had clear understanding of what their budgets were for 2021. And 70% had some kind of a ballpark. So it's not surprising to me to hear where you are. I think you might even be a little ahead of the game right now. How about you, Shema?
So this is interesting. So we're basically planning things out about 3 months in advance, and it's really commensurate with new product releases. So like I mentioned earlier, it's like we're creating something. No one knew that this would be a market. So and no one knows what it can turn into. So in terms of true entrepreneurial experimentation, what do we do? Everything is kind of really, it's about 3 months out. So we're lucky everything we do, our supply chain, everything is in Los Angeles, makes it really easy for us to be able to come up with new things, push it out, and really kind of work super fast, So 3 months is the quickness of really what we're looking at. And we're coming out with new products in early November. And it's we're a little nervous, right? It's we're pivoting and spinning off and trying new things. And 3 months is about as long as I can look out to it, because at any given moment, we have to be willing to say, all right, this product line or this isn't working. So how do we kind of shut it down and then bring something back up, right? Or do something else. So the need to pivot in terms of a business model and what we're doing is the need is very urgent to not get too locked into a fixed mentality beyond, I'd say, about 3 months.
Yeah, this is interesting. So what I'm hearing right now is that partnerships is a really key way to reduce those customer acquisition costs. And for those that are new to the world of Shopify, essentially, how much does it cost to acquire a single customer? And it looks like we have some comments coming in. There's some folks, Jeff said that he just got his site started recently. It's been online for a couple of months, which is actually a side hustle for him. So maybe for the smaller folks that are just getting started, what do you recommend for them in terms of starting to build that momentum and bringing that organic traffic to their site where it is cost effective?
Organic traffic to your site. I'm that's hard, right? So I don't know. I would say that's hard. It's you gotta play for keeps, and usually playing for keeps is paying something. But for us, obviously I would say the one thing that we did really right very early on was hire a public relations agent. That was it was actually so inexpensive given the amount of exposure and visibility that we got. I mean, we made so much money from like just a few key placements. I think in the past, people have really thought that PR was like, you just throw your money away. And yeah, sure, that's possibly the case. But I do think that some strategic placements, that the acquisition cost of those customers can get really low depending on where you get those key placements. So for me, I would say that was like a huge winner. And then the other thing is, and this is what I hear a lot from like other people I know who are just starting things, it's like a lot of it has to also do with like your copy and your creative. So if your business is like very nascent and very early on, it's like, and you're going to spend any money on doing anything, make sure you're coming correct. So like, you know, like one of the other things that really worked well for us was like our creative and, you know, our copy and how we went about figuring out what to write and what was conversion oriented, because every dollar we spent in the beginning was like, all right, we don't know if this is going to work out. So every dollar we spent, we kind of maybe spent $3 more to make sure that like it was kind of the best it could be as we iterated and tested.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are your guys' thoughts around like content driven type stuff, whether that's a podcast that you're hosting and then your brand, of course, is supporting it? I know there's some great brands out there, like Allbirds is an example, that actually has their own original podcast, not focused on their brand, but actually focused on how brands can grow a sustainable business, which aligns with their core values. Do you guys have any thoughts around original content that's cost effective like that?
Yeah, we don't do anything like that. I would almost, we have generally the take that most content takes a lot of time to do it right. And for us, we don't want to put content out there that isn't going to be interesting and helpful. If it's just content for the sake of putting words on your blog to get SEO, or if you're just trying to get attention, we don't think that's helpful for the brand. I'm sure there's a lot of outlets that would say that, but I do believe that the world of e-commerce marketing has changed. That was like a strategy 3 to 4 years ago, where you would just, you know, I think Gary Vee said it best, you know, write 20 pieces of content every day and put it out there. You know, I do think people want to build trust in brands, especially for new brands. You know, the first time you put a piece of content out there that feels disingenuous or feels like salesy or feels over the top, it's a lot. So I would say, yes, we have a lot of brands even on our site that do a lot of content too. The ones that are successful put the time in. And so if you're going to do a podcast, you know, don't just get on the phone or get on the mic and just start talking, right? Really plan it out, have a script, have some interesting guests, and have it tie back to conversion every time. So that's the other thing I was going to say. I think a lot of content we've seen go out there kind of forgets to put the link to order, or like forgets to like call out the product in the content, or, you know, especially in the early days, you have so much going on. You may get wrapped up in like the subject matter. If you're a clothing store, you might talk about clothing. In our case, you just talk about the beer so much that you forget to tell people to, you know, like, this is where you get it, and here's what's available, and here's why it's a good deal, and this is how long it'll be here. Like, this is still a sales technique, right? This is ultimately, everything should go back to sales. So that's all I have to say about content.
Close the loop.
Yes, channel focus, right? Meet me wherever I'm at as a consumer. But again, never let them just kind of hang and have a dead end. Always have that next step, whether it's subscribing, etc. from there.
For us, what was so interesting about creating content during COVID and a quarantine was that like we had to show stuff on people, right? So we had to like, you know, like we actually had to figure out like, how do you do a photo shoot, right? Like if you go to the Rental Co. website, you'll see my face on it, because like we couldn't hire models, you know, like it wasn't like we weren't able to like pull off content production kind of in the way that someone normally would, right? Like photo shoots and, you know, great lifestyle stuff. And, you know, it's just really, for us, it was a lot of like, how do we make this look like all the other mass companies just looked so like meh. And like me and my partner were like, we've got style. Like we should like, we're going to come correct, right? Like we're going to make this look chic. So a lot of it was also like stubbornness to an aesthetic vision that I think without that, combined with like understanding the right kind of conversion copy, like those two things together, I think really created some stellar ads for us. I mean, unfortunately, in the early days, you know, Facebook kept shutting down PPPE like ads. And so we ran through like so many like business managers and ads. I mean, it was insane. Like we would basically reach these amazing metrics and then like we would get shut down and then we'd have to restart and then we'd get shut down and then we'd restart and then we'd get shut down. So it's been a love and hate relationship, and one where like even very specific images would get shut down, but others would not, right? So like, I mean, this was like total scrappiness in like so many ways.
Wow. Yeah, those algorithms. Gotta love those algorithms out there. So let's talk a little bit about reducing churn. So, churn is interesting, especially if you have a subscription business. And I know, Jason, you guys offer a subscription model on your site. Shama, I'm not sure if you all offer subscription for the masks. I mean, sometimes you want a fresh mask every so often, like underwear, right? But with that said, what are some ways you and maybe the industry at large is actually trying to reduce churn or drive those repeat purchases?
Yeah, it's a big issue right now, especially as the economy is sort of dipping and people are leaving subscription pretty fast. And I think in a consumable business or consumable products, if anyone out there is selling consumables like beer or other food items in particular, you can have a subscription. That's extremely important, but also your repeat rate is important too, right? Like you want to have people coming back every week and ordering beer in my case, right? And that's like kind of like a subscription, even if they're not subscribing, that's still churn for us. Like if we don't have somebody, after the second order, they're 70% likely to come back for a third in our case. So we would want them to come back for the second. And we certainly want them to come for a third. Otherwise that's churn in our mind, right? That's the quick churn. And so, I mean, we do a lot of things to reduce it. Email marketing funnels is our absolute crucial one. And I can't say this enough. I know I'm seeing some comments here about like I have 75 email followers or something. Those are really important, right? Like don't take those 75 and email them interesting stuff individually as often as you can, right? Like target it to what they ordered, target it to when they ordered it, how much they ordered it, where they live. Like if you see an interesting, treat them like your friend. And that's how you want to really like reduce churn the best is don't just hit them with like, the Bloomingdale's text message that you get every day that you don't like. And Richard's smiling. He told us yesterday. Yeah. But if you get that regularly, you're not going to order. You want something personalized. And that's why for us, we set up so many email funnels that are so personalized, put their name in there. Sometimes we even have one of our team members have a brewer for our best customers. We'll have a brewer do a video being like, hey, John, thanks for ordering. We really appreciate you from so-and-so brewery. That goes a long way, right? Like that really reduces churn. They're almost never going to leave. And our subscription products have some of the lowest churn in the beverage space because of that. It's hard, it's hard otherwise. You really just want to hit them with very strong individualized content is how we've approached it.
I think that personalization that you're talking about, to some degree, a personalization, and creating experiences is just so hot right now, especially for so many of us who are trapped in an apartment, or not really out and about the way we had been in the past. Do you guys have other kinds of ways to pull in the passion points or the aesthetics, as you were talking about, Chema, and how are you reaching out to them so that they feel that there's a one-on-one relationship with you guys?
Well, here's what's really interesting. So the month of August, we had 45% repeat customers. It's really high. It's very high. Our conversion is between 5 and 6%. What can I say? We got a good product. I mean, it's difficult because we're definitely not doing personalization. We have a really great email cadence. Again, we've kind of approached this business model like a very limited edition direct to consumer brand. So we have limited edition colors that come out, new fabrications. And so what we do is we're so tight on our supply chain that we really drive purchasing based on selling out of new colors, introducing interesting. What's really been working for us is introducing different variations of coupons. We've done a lot of testing of promotional discounts. We're kind of constantly testing, is it the buy 3, get 1 free? Is it the 15% off the 4-pack? Is it introducing an 8-pack so we drive more people to buy the 4-pack? It is really interesting to kind of start to play with promotional discounts. In the beginning, we didn't realize how many people or how many masks anyone really needed, right? I don't think anyone knew what they needed. So like what we're starting to see is how long this thing really prolongs itself, because more of the businesses that launch doing face masks are now reverting back to their original kind of intent as business models. They're kind of exiting. So a lot of companies are actually now at this point, 6 months later, exiting the face mask business. So we're kind of, since our whole supply chain was set up to do just this thing, we're kind of able to now take more of that market share. But there is no personalization on our end. It's really just been about, setting up a couple good email funnels. But really it's like promos and like making sure that we're like optimizing who we're attacking with what promos, and constantly testing that out.
And are you measuring all that yourself, or do you have an agency? How are you determining your KPIs and how you're?
I've got an amazing team. So the other really cool thing is like, when it's not your first business,
right.
It makes it a lot easier. So like, I would say if I was a first time entrepreneur, I'd be like, oh my God, how do I do this? But I'm not. So that makes it really easy. So I've got like an amazing, we were able to do some job creation with this business. We have 11 people who are working with us. Kick-ass marketing team, kick-ass like fractional CFO. Like we basically have all the right people. Like our cash flow modeling is run weekly. Like we don't just do monthly flows. Like we're on a week-to-week basis of being able to measure our acquisition costs, to be able to measure like coupon performance. We're running really fast. I mean, while most people were trying to figure out how to not like eat potato chips every day during quarantine, we were like, holy shit. All right, we're at the racehorse. Like, what's next?
Wow. Week by week. Wow. That's very fast. Yeah. I'm still trying to decide what time the newsletter is going to go out tomorrow. But with that said, what about Black Friday, Cyber Monday? I know we talk a lot about like strategy from CAC and of course churn. We'll get to LTV here in a little bit here. But any recommendations for Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Like, is there anything specific that you, Shama, Jason, if there's any like strategies that you are approaching for this Black Friday, Cyber Monday? I know beer is not like I'm buying cheap beer on Black Friday, but still it is the time of purchases, especially online. Any approaches there that are different than since you guys are fairly new, anything that you're doing differently than what you might have seen in previous companies? I know, I was like, well, April.
That's a really good way to frame it, because it's like, I'm like, I don't know. There's no LY to comp, like what a great place to be in. Like,
I mean, so let's look at it from this perspective. So I know Jason and Shelby, both of your businesses are fairly fresh. And then Sue, if you want to comment more of like the industry at wide, like larger, more established brands, what they might be doing. I mean, as I mentioned, there are brands that are doing some very unique things this year. Let's look at the larger retailers. So let's take, for example, Walmart and Home Depot. They're canceling their entire in-store Black Friday experience altogether, moving that online. And some brands like Amazon, which is the large behemoth that we all know and love and hate sometimes, depending on what side of the coin you're on, they're actually shifting their Amazon Prime Day to a month earlier. And there are some brands that are actually giving consumers the choice on when that Black Friday is going to look like. So love to hear from you from more growing brands, what your thoughts are on that or what you're doing.
I mean, I can speak for us right now. What we're working on is creating some loss leaders. So we're kind of looking at specific product development to kind of harken back to traditional retail stuff, and and we're looking at creating some loss leaders specifically for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We've tried to not be like overly promotional, especially because this product is like, it's a commodity product, right? It's like right now you still need it, to a certain degree. So like we've been very careful, even though we've tested a lot of discounts, to not overly deep discount. But we are looking right now for Black Friday, Cyber Monday to produce a loss leader. So something where we just know we can like super leverage for that time period, knowing that's going to drive traffic. I can say similar to Jason in terms of like email marketing, that has to be like newsletters are the cheapest, most profitable thing that we do. Every newsletter we put out is gold. it's amazing. We're like, oh crap, that did really well. That's amazing. And it kind of continuously has that feeling. But it's hard, it's like masks are not necessarily a sexy item, right? Even though we're trying really hard. So as far as like what that's going to look like in terms of like we're not anticipating masks being like a gift giving item for the holiday, which is why we're focusing on rolling out new products before that. So I would say strategically, what I'm thinking about would be like introduce the new product assortment beginning of November, leverage masks and like maybe some other loss leaders to then kind of BOGO or do some add-ons with the mask as almost like a +1 onto whatever the new product is that we're launching. And because the brand is so focused on like construction and fit and fabric, and we're very fabric forward, everything's going to merge really well together. So in terms of like getting it free or some sort of BOGO like that is likely going to be a direction that we head into as we try to separate ourselves as, from just being a mask business.
Yeah. On our end, we're very differently. So it's a very different product because, to both your point, the beer has never really been a Black Friday thing. That's not a really a channel that made any sense, but it's also a huge opportunity with the beer e-commerce space growing so fast that we're kind of doing twofold. We're launching a loyalty program. We never really had one, a pretty basic one, I think the program we're using, but basically for every beer you buy, you get so many points and you can redeem those points for hats and shirts and glassware. And basically we're launching that during Black Friday. So our existing customer base are all going to show up with a bunch of points, but they have to use the existing ones by Cyber Monday. So like we're like kind of creating this like sense of urgency to come in and spend. We'll take a hit, trust me. Like there's plenty of people who are going to take advantage of that. But the idea is to really get them excited about Cyber Monday and coming to Taproom so that in the future behavior in the years to come, it's always like a routine element where they come back to Taproom to see what's up. We're also pushing what we're calling sort of our unique beer subscription club, which is going to be stuff that only is going to be available during that Black Friday to Cyber Monday period. You have to sign up for the subscription club, which is a monthly club where every month you'll get unique beers that are only available in the club nationwide. That's the only place you'll get them. And you have to kind of like sign up there for a promo on the subscription. That goes to the churn idea. Like, can we create that in Cyber Monday? Because those are the only kind of products, if you're not going to stock up on beer on Cyber Monday just because it's cheaper, right? That's not how people think about alcohol sales. So for us, it's really about providing a product that people wouldn't otherwise associate with Cyber Monday, but it's still a good deal on something that they may need long into the future.
Yeah, exclusivity, especially with product offerings, is super key. Even from the newsletter perspective, like even offering exclusive content through your newsletters can be very, very valuable. I know a lot of our clients actually utilize that with their affiliates and influencers to drive activation of sales through those channels, which has been quite successful for a lot of brands out there. So that's actually quite interesting from that perspective, especially when it comes to something that you wouldn't associate with Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Sue, what are you seeing in the industry in terms of what's happening this BFCM, I guess you could say, #BFCM?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things happening. One is certainly that the in-store experience is tanking, right? Just to put it point blank. There's been quite a number of press articles written on just the issues in having a Black Friday this year and having, how many people are allowed in the store at any one time, that kind of a thing is really going to impact brick and mortar sales. That is probably very good news for all the folks that are on this call who are digital. So the great news for digital is that we are seeing a lot of e-commerce lift. We're seeing a lot of e-commerce media consumption. I was just looking recently at, I think the most recent numbers were posted only through July, but we're looking at digital platforms having an increase year over year of 10% just in viewership of consumers. So, when you look at breakdowns like CTV or, streaming television, you're also seeing that those are up exponentially. And when you look at the media shifts between them, it plays out. So we're watching the dollars follow the eyeballs, and we're watching a lot of brands now. Traditionally, podcasting and audio streaming have been big DTC fans. It's like 80-20 rule practically on the amount of DTCs who are ad supporting podcasts and audio. I'm wondering if any of you guys are considering looking at, we've talked a lot about email marketing. We've talked a lot about Facebook. Are you also looking at new media possibilities?
Jason,
yeah, I can jump in a little bit. I mean, we are looking right now into TikTok. Cost per click is extremely small on TikTok. We have a weird scenario where a big portion of TikTok's user base is under 21. So it's a little bit more limited, a little bit more unique on how we use TikTok for selling beer. But the cost per clicks there are insanely low. I don't know if anyone's been paying attention there. We're also playing on YouTube starting the next couple weeks. Why? Because it's so similar to Google. It actually is very easy. If you guys run Google ads now, setting it up for YouTube, if you have video ads made, even if you can have really easy ones made, is actually a really easy segue. It's the same people, searching craft beer delivered on Google when they're searching, craft beer review on YouTube, get the same ad. So it's very based as opposed to like Facebook, which was more like interest based. So you get very, very high results on YouTube. So we're really diving into that. Otherwise, we're actually going into sort of out-of-home stuff that has become very cheap. Here in New York City, where we're all based, we're wrapping cars with brands. Like it's become very, very cheap. It used to be an expensive thing to do here, but with the flood of people out of here, a lot of the advertising market is off. The taxi cab tops have become very cheap. Subway ads are very, very cheap right now. So we're exploring a lot of those right now in the weirdest way. That being said, I'm sure for a lot of the newer Shopify stores out there, I don't think a Subway ad makes a ton of sense. But definitely TikTok and YouTube for us. Yeah.
And, beer, so many people are passionate about beer that, you mentioned podcasting earlier on. And, if somebody was going to do something like that and create content, it's got to be really good content. But the passion, I would think, would lend itself to some really great podcasts. So I don't know. I mean, I don't own a podcast business. I'm not trying to push podcasting, but I would think that would be a great place for you.
I mean, podcasting, I think it's 75% of US adults actually no, up to 12 and up US humans have and or listened or know what a podcast is. So podcast is very ubiquitous now in our culture.
Yeah, so it had a funny podcasting media themselves had a very strange year. They were growing very well up until this year, and then did very well again because of their flexibility in end of Q1, early Q2. I think what we're now seeing too is that the consumer is getting used to listening to their podcasts in different ways and at different times, where it might have been a commuter thing earlier, or it might have been to go to bed. Now it's, breaks during the day. And we're seeing a lot of changes in consumer behavior around how they listen.
Yeah, that's actually really true, especially when it comes to context of that type of content. So let's shift gears a little bit into LTV, or for folks that are just hearing about this KPI, it's called lifetime value. So the amount of revenue a customer brings in during their entire lifetime of being a customer of yours. So Shama, Jason, how do you guys look at lifetime value? I know there's different ways to look at it, but how do you guys look at it for your business?
That's hard for us. It's a struggling question, mostly because we don't yet know. So, as far as I'd say we've got, I just get, our customer retention is so high, right? So for us, it's and we don't know how long, and our business is the optimal case study in what a pop-up business model is, right? It's basically a pop-up business. And so understanding the longevity of the customer and how to, it's challenging for me to answer. I don't yet know, because we haven't been around that long. It's difficult for me to kind of figure out it's difficult for me to figure out like how I would best understand that in that context. It's only been a few months.
Yeah, it is hard to measure LTV. I mean, it's constantly evolving too as your business matures over time anyways.
Well, I'm a little worried. So like for me, when I say that, it's because like, we're going to come out with a new product category. So we're trying to become this lifestyle brand. So when we introduce, it's not going to be like introducing another mask. It's an entirely new category, which means we're going to have drop off, right? So we're basically hedging some risk here and saying, okay, we are known as being this kind of business, and we're going to make an effort here to now branch off. So we know there's going to be significant drop off. We're not going to stop selling masks, but we're not planning on seeing these like spectacular numbers that I've been listing. A lot of that's going to shift and change as the brand kind of grows. So I would say like the success and the shiny metrics we have so far are amazing up until this point. Very hard for me to tell you. Check back, I would say, at the end of this year, and we could do like a post-mortem on the last, on Q4 to be able to say like, all right, what the hell actually happened here?
Yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Jason? Like, what's that looking like for y'all there at Taproom?
Yeah, I mean, measuring LTV is always sort of it's more of an art than a science generally. So I learned the hard way how to really do a good cohort analysis. I didn't even know what that was before I started this thing, but it honestly has really changed the way we do business, which is I didn't know what it was. So in March, who bought our products? Like looking at all the people who bought, how many of them came back in April? How many of them came back in May? How many came back in June? How many came back in July? And like sort of just trailing that off, then looking at the April people and doing that. For us, that's how we kind of give this, like, if we're around for 10 years and if we have a consistent sort of hyperbole down there, what does our LTV of all those people look in each month? It is really hard to do right now. I mean, the world is so odd that looking at an April cohort, which was people ordering basically to stock up on $200 of beer in case the world fell apart and they still needed to get drunk with their friends. They were ordering a ton of beer. Them coming back in May is different than June and July. We're July now and August now. There's sort of ordering a more regular cadence, if at all. And so we're seeing very different risks, but that's how we measure it. And if I would be very scared if you were doing anything too different than that. Like if you were really going like, okay, I made this much margin on all customers this month, and I'm going to have those guys around for 3 years, and that's my LTV. Like I've seen people do that, and it's a little scary. So that's how we do it. We do it pretty simply. We don't try and get too much more complicated than that.
And like, somebody's asking, what sort of analytics do you use for doing the cohort analysis?
Yeah, I have a great data analytics person that really dives in an Excel sheet, and it's honestly just in Excel though. We kind of pull, like if you're on Shopify, which I assume most of you are, you just pull the orders. There's all unique identifiers for every single customer. You can see when they're ordering. If you just do a pivot table on that, you actually see when they and how often they ordered. It's actually not a complicated. It's somewhat complicated if you're not great with Excel, but it's not a crazy formula to run.
Okay. Yeah. LTV can be a little intimidating. Even when I look at LTV, it's like, can I guarantee that? I'm like, nope. But directionally, you have some type of understanding. Yeah. So there's been quite a lot of questions here coming in about product development, how you look at product. And Shama, you actually have a very interesting framework you actually discussed with us yesterday, which I learned, and I was like, that's really interesting. I never looked at development like that when coming up with new products and the frequency of products. So if you don't mind just touching on that, like how do you look at building new products or defining whether or not you're going to build a new product line?
Yeah, that was so exciting to share with you guys. I got excited talking about it. So this concept is called, jobs to be done theory, and it kind of comes out of this disruptive strategy that was taught by Clay Christensen from Harvard Business School, who's no longer with us. He passed away earlier this year. And what's so interesting is him and his colleague, Bob Mesta, came up with this kind of demand side planning, right? And you can basically take demand side planning and apply that to almost everything, right? Whether that's introducing a new downstream market, a new downstream product, or moving upstream if you already have an existing model. So product development it can influence, as well as marketing language and conversation and how you choose to speak to your customers. And so we adopted this framework very early on in the business. In fact, we launched a week and we were like, oh crap, we need to really figure out, like, why are people buying from us? And so the framework that this methodology really seeks to answer the question to is, why is today the day that you decided to buy this product or you decided to buy this brand? And this kind of analysis is like super juicy and special because not everyone's doing it. So it's like, shh, like, like don't tell everybody. But what's amazing is when you kind of figure out the core causality around why someone chose to buy your product, it allows you to shift your messaging. It also allows you to see if you've been over-engineering the product. And so that I think is very interesting. So traditionally, my background is more like in traditional fashion. And in fashion, you over-engineer the crap out of everything, right? And then you're like, it has the most amazing this and that, and everything is over-engineered, but you don't know why the customer has chosen to buy the product. And so when you understand this kind of demand side planning, you actually end up building products that are good enough, right? Not the most overly engineered solution to a made-up problem that you had, but ultimately you are building the product exactly good enough for them to buy it at that price. So it really impacted tremendously the way that we looked at product development. We did it before we launched the kids product. So we had like customer conversations, really kind of dove into what was working and not working, but it's less about the benefits and features and more about why these customers are, they say, hiring and firing these different products in and out of their lives. So, some people might know, they're in the audience, there's been this whole big retail rally cry around the fact that we are an extremely bloated industry that is very broken when it comes to inventory management, supply chain, discounting, et cetera. And so my thesis, right, is if we can actually build business models and brands around demand side planning rather than just supply side, which is the traditional model, then we actually might end up with these very lean, not overly engineered, but well-engineered business models that can truly give customers what they want and not what we think they want, right? It kind of solves that problem.
Very much like the direct consumer model in a lot of ways from that perspective, right? It's like, what problem am I going to solve versus I think you need a cup and this is why. Let me try to sell it. The old model will build it and they'll come, right? Which I think is very, very, very valuable from that perspective. So we have time for one more question. I don't know what that was. I'll go through this. Let's see. Someone just posted that we have a custom jewelry business and new, as we have only been around for about 2 years. Congratulations, that's awesome. If you've been in business for 2 years, that's awesome. So how do you grow your YouTube and such mediums? Can we tag along with other companies? Like, how do we form other partnerships or collaborations? Jason, this might be more in your realm. Like, how do you build partnerships with other brands to grow the brand?
Yeah, it's really a two-way street. So when you're launching a new product that isn't yours, right? So you're not making it, right? The only real way, so how do you choose what product you're going to put on, right? There's probably a million different theories out there. In our case, we do an insane amount of tests and we just really dive into the analytics, right? Like, how long were people spending on hard seltzer brands with neon colors versus hard seltzer brands with pastel colors versus ones with gray? And we'll pick, okay, the neon ones were really, people spent more time on there. Even if they didn't order more of them, just spent more time looking at them. We'll go out and find more hard seltzer brands with those colors. We'll reach out to those brands being like, hey, we really want to bring you onto our storefront, into our marketplace. We want to help you. Will you, at the basic level, will you joint promote with us? Will you put a buy now button on your website that drives to our website saying, hey, we're on Taproom. If you live in New York, you can get it faster, or you can get it with other stuff. Maybe you don't buy it direct from them. The second one is give us some ad money and we'll really boost what you're doing. And the last one is come exclusive with us and we'll push you throughout all of the state B2B. So for us, it's like sort of having tiers of partnership. If you have a marketplace, if it's a jewelry marketplace, which I assume you're referring to, you can bring on partners based on track the trends on your own site, Like, see what actually your, to Seamus' point, what do your customers want to order on your site? Don't give them something you like. Give them something they want, right? We don't ever sell what we like. In fact, we used to be so much more of a craft beer company, and all of a sudden we became a kombucha, hard seltzer, like hard tea seltzer company with 80% females ordering from our site. It's like insane how that happened.
I love the hard kombucha, Jason. Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
Dude, I didn't even know there was hard kombucha. This is
we have literally all the hard kombuchas available in the country exclusively on Taproom. So if you need them in New York, I got them. Why? Because we saw the trends just going insane in that direction, and no one else could see that other than us. So we just went out and grabbed them, and that was how we chose our vendors, got them to cross promote. Now we started the kombucha wars on Taproom because of it, and so like all these brands are now competing to spend more on Taproom to be bigger. So like that's really a great way to like get those collaborations going, even on a jewelry site. Like find the designs that your customers like, go out and get them to promote about you, or at least try and spend money with you. And at the best, make exclusive products for you would be that's the key for a marketplace. So
awesome. So there you have it, everyone. There's a lot we covered today. I wish we had more time to do even more, because I think we could be here for hours nerding out on direct-to-consumer, e-commerce, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And, as we mentioned, like, we're not fortune tellers. We don't know every single answer, but what the information that we do have and can share with you, we hope that it is valuable and helpful for you during this Black Friday and Cyber Monday. There's a tremendous opportunity for e-commerce brands just like you to capture, as I mentioned, the attention of consumers, and of course, capture their dollars, of course, with value and meaning. But with that said, I'd like to just close off with the panel and ask you all if there's any specific brands out there that you look to, or any resources you would recommend to the audience here where they can maybe continue their education and learning about best practices in e-commerce. What resources could you give them in terms of like recommendations?
I mean, I'm just a super big fan right now of all this demand side product development and like marketing copy and all of that. So I would highly suggest that everybody read the Harvard Business Review article on demand side product development. And Bob Mesta, who kind of co-founded this theory, is coming out with a book this month, or like I think early October, on demand side sales and kind of work and like moving in that direction. So honestly, I think that is the way of the future, is really tapping more. And it's not moving away from supply side, but like, how do we really lean into what's possible? And sometimes I think in my mind, that might mean like making the ugly thing, like kind of what Jason said. You don't have to love it, right? If it can make a ton of money, and it doesn't have to be the prettiest thing. You don't have to love it. So I'm leaning more and more in that direction, and that would be my suggested future thinking for everybody.
How about you, Sue?
I am going to put in a shameless plug for IAB because there's if you go to IAB.com, there is a knowledge center, and there we have done so much work on understanding how direct-to-consumer brands who are disrupting the way that we've been seeing brands sell for the last 150 years. The amount of work, the foundational work on how that's all come to be, I think would be helpful to anybody who's on this call. So I would say go online. It is not right now. It's available to anybody. So you could go on IAB.com and download a tremendous amount on direct-to-consumer brands.
Awesome. I actually use that research quite a bit myself for my own work. And how about you, Jason?
And you caught me off guard with this one. I am so much less of an academic than Shema and Sue, that I'm so much more nitty gritty person that for me, I would honestly say is what I did, which was literally read every Shopify tutorial on how to code and how to create an amazing website, and then go in and learn Excel better than anybody else, output all your products, learn how to do your data. There's tons of tutorials on it. That was what got my entire product off the ground, was really diving into the data on the website and learning how to make the changes myself, which I know sounds useless, but and it's not that high level on your product. But at the same time, for me, it helped me really know what things I could A/B test and test often, because I could just do it. I didn't have to pay somebody. I didn't have to like have a conversation about it. I could just make the change, see if it made an impact, and go back. And it made the world a difference. And still today, I want to go in there. They yell at me, but I want to go in there and change things. And it really encourages, I think, the team long run to make a big difference for your company as it grows.
It's awesome. And it looks like everyone's very interested in all these pieces here. It looks like, Shama, you've already shared that article. And for everyone here joining us, again, I want to thank you for joining us. Again, we want to thank our sponsors, Rebuy, Avex, as well as Shopify. And to Jason's point, Shopify actually does have, I believe, a master's class section on their website. So you should really go check that out. There are industry leaders from throughout the industry, from the service provider side to the merchant side of the house, really giving their thoughts and their best practices. So you should really take advantage of those as well. And if you're at all interested in influencer or affiliate marketing, we have a great blog as well you can go check out. It's blog.refersion.com. Plenty of great resources there as well. And we'll include a lot of these resources in our follow-up email, as well as a recording of today's session, which will be available tomorrow on YouTube on demand. And also for those that we weren't able to get to your question, do not worry, we'll review those tonight as well and try to provide as much resources as possible to answer as many of those questions as possible. Again, thank you everyone again for coming. Please stay safe. Best of luck this Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You're gonna crush it. And there is a networking component. If you're interested in meeting other attendees here, you'll be randomly matched with other folks. So we encourage you to have your camera and your microphone on and get to mingle just like a real in-person event. Make sure you grab a drink, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcohol.
Beer.
Yeah.
Beer. More beer.
I'm all about that hard kombucha. I'm a big June Shine guy. And we'll see you at our next event, and keep an eye out for that. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you soon.